All right, Dolphin fans, how is everybody doing? Long time no see. We're in between hockey playoff streams here, so I figured, what the hell? I'll drop my hat into the ring of Dolphins draft reviews. Now, I think Kyle's going to start making some content back up on this channel this week. Hopeful for that, but hockey playoffs have us pretty busy. So I just kind of wanted to go over the draft a little bit myself, give you my 2 cents. Won't be a long video. Now, Dolphins entered the game or entered the day, entered the draft with a one, a two, a three, a couple of fours. And on one hand, you're excited for the draft and the potential that that brings. And then on the other hand, you're looking at the draft to fix a mess that's been created by the same guys that are drafting the new players. So the excitement can kind of be limited. So let's go over this now. The easiest thing to do is to say first pick, number 13 overall, defensive tackle Kenneth Grant. Everybody loves to pick. Absolutely no complaints about that. It's a spot that we needed. The dude is an absolute beast. I haven't seen one bad thing said about the guy. So we're clean there. Now we get to the second round, and Jonah Sava, I've been saying it correctly, but now that I'm on camera, I'm not going to be able to get it. Let's try this again. Sava Ania. I think I got that right. He's a guard. Now we moved up. And this is where things start to get a little bit queasy if you're looking for instant results. We'll put it that way. So we got rid of our third. We moved up in the second to pick him. Would he have been there when we picked? I think the original pick was 48. Who knows, right? This was a guy they targeted. I don't necessarily have a huge problem with moving out of the third to get a guy that you like in the second round because it's a position of need. Looks like he's going to be a good player. And at that point, when you made the deal, you had 2 fours. Now you also included one of those fours in this deal. So it was a price. It was a hell of a price to pay. We got a later round pick, I believe. I don't know the exact details of the trade on my own, but whatever the details were, this trade by itself I was fine. It's fine with it. I think most people are like, okay, you know what? Big on the O line, big on the D line. At this point, we still had a 4 coming, and I kind of felt like we're going to use that to fill another need. And instead, what we did is we moved that pick to get a third round pick for next season. So we entered with a 1, a 2, a 3, and 2 fours. And out of that, we picked 1 and 2. So when you're in the position the Dolphins are in, we gave up a lot. We gave up a lot to move up and get a guard that just replaces Robert Hunt in the sense that, and if you look at the first pick at Grant, you could almost say we're just replacing Hunt and Wilkins, so to speak. And the issue I have there is, while I know both of those players got significant paydays, and maybe the question was whether or not they were worth it or not, you're still just using more draft capital to fill the holes of the guys that left that you already expended draft capital on, but you couldn't afford to sign them because you're busy paying Tyreek and Tua and Jalen Ramsey, who now wants to leave. So this is kind of like, in some sense, the inmates running the asylum, because the Dolphins are in a mess. The mess has been created by, in my opinion, Greer's mismanagement of most of the draft capital that we've had, and Ross, being a completely inept fool of an owner at this point, is just giving Greer the keys to the second Lamborghini. He already trashed the Mercedes. Now we're giving him the keys to the Lamborghini. Say, don't ruin it this time. So while I'm happy with the first 2 picks, not exactly thrilled with the fact that we started the day with 5 picks in the first 4 rounds. We only used 2. So by the time we get back to the 5th round, defensive tackle Jordan Phillips, another big guy for the defense. Again, no problems there, but now we've gone through 5 rounds. We haven't taken a corner. We haven't addressed the secondary at all. And we had all those picks, and we've got one guy for the offensive line. It's one. So I guess Patrick Paul better be the real deal. And hopefully Eichenberg ends up on the bench. Now the rest of the way, it's a mixed bag. In the fifth round, we addressed the secondary with corner Jason Marshall and safety Dante Trader. Now I'm not going to pretend to have done enough draft research to know the intricacies of those guys. But based on the opinions of just about everybody I've seen, we'll see. Basically, that's the gist of it. Is well, we'll see. We need guys. We need bodies, and here's guys that we drafted that might have some potential. Now, when you go back into Greer's draft history, after the fourth round, it gets pretty sketchy. And for most teams, you're only going to hit so much on those late picks. So now, at this point, looking at it from the fifth up, when you look at the needs that we had and the picks that we entered the day with, I'm happy with the first two picks. The next three, Jordan Phillips probably going to turn out to be pretty good. Obviously, they're looking at him more as a run stopper. So at this point, we've fulfilled the defensive line. Okay. Then we went after the secondary. We're not going to get great players in the fifth round, so it is what it is. Now, after that, I kind of liked the last two picks. In the sixth round, Ollie Gordon Jr., running back out of Oklahoma State. Didn't have a great year last year, but the year before he was on fire. I like this pick because it kind of matches what we have or complements what we have. He's a big, bruising type of running back. I think he'll do well. And for a sixth-round pick, you're not losing a whole lot. And then the pick I've seen a lot of people happy about, excited, round 7, pick 231, Quinn Ewers, quarterback out of Texas. Again, I'm not going to pretend to have done all the research on my own, but most of the opinions that I've seen, basically high ceiling, low risk, right? He does need to work on some things, but certainly he's probably got much better chances of being something than any of the guys we've had here, including Skylar Thompson. So a mixed bag. I like the first two picks, and I like the bottom two picks. The rest of it, And when you take into consideration the number of picks that we had, right? I was honestly more excited about having those middle picks, the third and the fourths there, because that's where you can kind of still get some bargains of some players that maybe whoopsies slipped out of the first or even maybe the second round. And we just completely forego that entire dynamic. Yeah, we get a third for next year, but we got some serious needs right now. Now I'm not going over in this video the free agents, the undrafted free agents that we've signed. We've signed a bunch. By the time this video is out, we will have signed more. So we'll look at that a little bit more towards the week. But when you look at, remember last year, Dallas Cowboys fans giving Jerry Jones all the crap in the world because he said we're all in, and then it turns out all in just kind of meant we're not going to do anything. It seems very similar with Ross telling, I told McDaniel and Greer that the status quo was not acceptable. But it don't look like these guys are on the hot seat whatsoever. Certainly doesn't look like Greer is on the hot seat. So you got the question marks. Ramsey's going to get traded. That's probably a done deal. And they asked Greer basically they asked Greer if he was going to be smart about trading him after June 1st because of the cap savings. He was pretty non-committal, but I just don't like the guy. I don't like the guy's energy. I don't think he's a good GM. I think he's just dumb. I think he just makes some dumb moves for whatever reason. I'm just not happy with him at all. Any GM given that position is going to hit on a few picks, but the way that he is structured our salary cap is part of the reason we're in this mess. We gave all the money to wide receivers, and between Hunt, Wilkins, and Van Ginkel, we couldn't have managed to keep one, right? Let's not even talk about linebacker, which we didn't even address in this draft at all. The linebackers are right? The secondary, as soon as we trade Ramsey, the secondary at best is cross your fingers right now. Now, I know there's some free agents out there, right? But That's how we got ourselves into this mess. We already got into that mess of free agents and overpaying for guys. And now Ramsey wants to go because he doesn't like McMichael. And you got Tyreek making all that money. Don't know what the hell, you don't know for sure if we're going to be keeping him or moving on from him because he can't stay out of trouble. You got Waddle, which nobody has any problems with, but he's got paid. You can only pay so many of the skill players. And so my concern, honestly, with this group of guys, especially the first two guys, is that, yeah, even if they're good, what's going to have changed? In other words, we drafted Wilkins, we drafted Hunt. They were so good that they were worth a lot of money on the open market. We couldn't afford to sign them. So what's going to change? Or are we just going to continue to just develop players for other teams to go get paid elsewhere? Because that's what I'm looking at when I see the players that you say, oh man, these guys should be good. They might be Pro Bowlers. They could really fill a need. Well, once their first contract is up, if we still got Greer paying all the wide receivers all the money and giving the quarterback all the money and not couldn't even pay it. What did Van Ginkel get? Like 10 million, I believe his deal was. I mean, we haven't kept hardly any of the players that Greer has actually hit on. All the guys, for the most part, not all, but most of the guys that Greer has actually hit on, especially on the defensive side of the ball, we've let go. So for me, it's hard to get excited about him drafting good players right now because I just don't know how many years. They're not calling it a rebuild. They don't want to call it a soft reset. And the other part to that is that it's still Mike McDaniel's team. Now, there's a certain vibe, there's a certain culture, there's a certain style that we play. I don't know that you can just draft fat guys and it suddenly changes. And I know I'm being facetious when I call them fat guys, but you get the point. You don't just take the system that we've run, the kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not calling it soft, but you just can't throw guys out there on the field and expect their size to do the job. You still have to have the right systems and the right structures. So I just don't know if McDaniel's the guy. And it doesn't feel like we have any real direction. Yeah, we went bigger in this one draft, right? We did add some size. Happy with the defensive line. At this point, the defensive line probably about as good as it's going to get if you take into consideration the fact that we don't want to overpay anybody. But the linebacking core is meh. The secondary was okay plus. That's with Ramsey. Without Ramsey, you could be looking at Cam Smith and Storm Duck on the outside. And if those two play corner, I'm coming back and making a comeback as a wide receiver in the NFL so I can play the Dolphins twice a year. But now the bottom two picks I do like. I think you got to have somebody there that you're developing as a quarterback, right? We had high hopes for Skyler. He came in, he looked good. He almost won a playoff game, and then he just got progressively worse. So the question I have there is that because he sucks or the coaching staff sucks? Because quarterbacks are supposed to get better as they go, and Skyler got worse. So there's that. In terms of the big running back, good. I think, if McDaniel's going to use him, right? We've already got H.M. We've already got Jalen Wright. Now we've got a third running back. There's only so many, you know what I mean? There's only so many touches anybody's going to get. So we didn't expend a lot of draft capital there, so no problem. So overall, I'm going to give this one, honestly, I know I've seen a lot of people giving it Bs. B plus, seen a couple A's. I'm going to do what I do and bitch a little bit more and give it a C plus. Now, why I'm giving it a C plus is because prove to me that we can do one of two things. There's two things I want to see, actually three. There's three things that could make this draft an A. Number one, those first two big juicy picks, we actually are able to develop them and re-sign them. Okay, that's number one. Number two, give me one quality starter out of those two secondary picks. One of the two, the corner or the safety. I don't care. Give me one guy that's an adequate starter. Don't need him to be the next X or the next Jalen Ram. Just somebody that you throw out there, it's just going to be steady and you're good. And the third thing is develop the quarterback to where at worst he's a viable long-term backup quarterback that keeps in the system and is a viable backup for however long you're going to keep Tua. If you can pull that out of this draft, I'll give it an A. But right now, based on Greer's history and this team's history, we won't develop the quarterback. Both of the corners and the safety are going to kind of be right? I mean, look at Cam Smith. You can't tell if the guy is great or sucks because he either won't get an opportunity, he doesn't make the most of his opportunities. That was a high pick. We have to do better. And then the top two, I'm confident that both Grant and Savania, did I say that right? I have confidence that they're both going to be day one starters and be excellent players. Can we keep them? Can we keep them? Because the problem we're in, the same dude that created the problem has been given the keys to fix the problem. So I'm no more excited about those two picks than I would have been about Hunt and Wilkins, because what's the initial contract? Is it 4 or 5 years? However many years the initial contract is. Are we going to be ready to win a Super Bowl within that time period? Because that is one way that some teams like to go, is they try to win in a lot of the youth's first contracts. And if you're on the offensive line, defensive line, that's possible because there's not a huge learning curve there. So I'll give it a C plus. You could change it to a B. It could be an A draft. There's potential there. I see people thinking Ewers is going to be a good quarterback, that he's got, elite talent potential. Okay, right? Gordon he could end up being a steal, right? The defensive line, we really worked on the defensive line. No problem there. A little disappointed that with all of the needs that we had, we basically in trades gave up 3 picks and we only addressed one spot on the offensive line. I would have minded keeping that extra 4th, like the initial trade. Okay, but the trade to get the 3rd next year, there wasn't a tackle. Like, we couldn't have taken a tackle in the 4th round that might have been able to be developed and helped, and help us. So I would have liked, or a center, right? There wasn't anybody in the 4th round. So a little sketchy there with that. But if Greer gets fired, good, because then that 3rd round pick won't be on Greer. It'll be on whoever the next guy is. So, all right. That's it. Short and sweet for today. Like I said, I told everybody on the hockey channel, I'll tell you guys here, we are coming back to the football channel this year. Last year, it just got to be too much with the dogs passing and everything that went on in my life. And when hockey started, I just did not have the emotional energy to run both channels. But we should be good to go this year. Life is a lot more secure and steady now. So I'm looking forward to the Dolphins season, because if you follow the hockey channel, the first 5 years of that channel, all I did was bitch and complain, because I'm a very adept complainer. I can find a complaint anywhere. And now that the Panthers are good, there's really not a lot to complain about. And so now I can take out my anger and frustrations on the Dolphins, because if there's any team that deserves it, it's them, right? All right. Appreciate all the support. We'll see you again later on this week.